Tomorrow, our men's national team back in action. CONCACAF Nations League, the quarterfinals, win, and you're through to the 2024 Gold Cup. They are on the road, Canada, playing Suriname before the return leg at BMO Field on Tuesday. We will, of course, have a full matchday live coverage for you on One Soccer. So let's talk about it. We know that there's no Alphonso Davies. We know that there's no Derek Cornelius. We know that Canada should win, needs to win to officially book that ticket to next year's CONCACAF Gold Cup. But let's talk about Suriname first, Gareth Wheeler, because I think we all remember, maybe not so fondly, a time not too long ago where Suriname, the nation, the footballing nation, struck a few chords of fear in some Canadian soccer supporters as Canada was continuing their upwards trajectory. That's a different era, a bygone era, if you will. But alas, Canada still needs to win these games. What type of threat are you expecting Suriname to pose?
All right, let's set the record straight here on the fear factor when it came to Suriname.
Excellent.
We were in a period of great unknown when it came to what this Canada team would be all about, and Canada was hardly lighting the world on fire in terms of their form, regularly losing to smaller opponents. And the manager at that time, John Herdman, did a wonderful sell job about all the clear and present dangers that Suriname brought to the table, not playing at home, empty stadiums, yada, yada. It was a weird time, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's a time where Canada, they've ascended to be one of, if not the best team in CONCACAF, and Suriname remains a decent enough middle range side within this region. But they do have one star player in Geraldo Becker, plays for Real Sociedad, can play on the right, can play on the left, scored actually last week in the match winner against Barcelona and a 1-0 win. He's dynamic. He's the one player that you look at the Suriname squad that he could start for Canada. He is good enough to play in that role. Dyke still at the back is a good player, plays for Middlesbrough as well. So there are some talented players. I think it's more about Canada doing their job. This away travel, it's a little bit difficult as well. So just manage this first game, come away with a neat and tidy result, bring it back to BMO Field, and finish the job. Remember, Canada did lose, disappointingly so, at this stage of the competition last year. So all the players involved should be clear and really aware of any potential pitfalls. Can't withstand different moments where you just take your eye off the prize here. You need to remain focused. If Canada do that, play to their ability, then they should be fine in this tie.
I just want to put it on record that I didn't buy it then, and I'm not buying it now. And look, Suriname have, like Will's mentioned, one or two decent players, some threats that Canada are going to have to take care of in this game. But the reality is, against a side like this over two legs, if anyone other than Canada is advancing from this tie, it is going to be Canada's fault. And we unfortunately saw that last season against Jamaica, but Suriname aren't the threat that Jamaica were.
So, Jordan, with that being said, I hear you laughing and smiling in agreement with Oliver Platt. Where do you think the advantage is, the bona fide advantage that we can point to and say, right there, that's why Canada should win this tie?
I mean, I think it's all the athleticism, the chemistry that is in this Canadian squad. Like, I think if you look at, Wheels is right, you kind of alluded to, if you look at one match and it's a one-off, cool, but two legs and you also play at home at BMO, like this is a team that Canada has enough on the first leg to do damage and win a game 1-0 or whatever it might be, 2-1, but then come and take care of business at home because, yeah, the biggest thing I'll focus on is, of course, Jesse Marsch has this team with a tactical identity. They know what to do, but I just think the raw athleticism in a game in November where you're coming off, these guys can run. They've proven it. They know what they need to do to go forward. And I think also, too, they have the attacking prowess and players that are in fine form going forward.
Ollie, where would you add?
Yeah, it's that attacking side of the team for me, and specifically Jonathan Davids, who is one of the informed players on the planet right now, let alone just in CONCACAFs. It's almost a year, or almost exactly a year, I should say, since Jonathan David was dropped by Lille for two big games against Monaco and Marseille. He'd gone 6 starts without a goal leading up to that period. Since then, he's played 34 games in Ligue 1 and scored 24 goals. That's just the league. That's not including the 4 in the past 3 that he's got against Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Juventus in the UEFA Champions League. So especially, obviously, with Alphonso Davies out for this particular window, I think a lot is going to fall on Jonathan David in terms of providing the magic, providing quality, also providing some leadership now at the level he's playing at. And he looks like a guy who's in prime position to do just that.
Wheels?
Any debate that he is that Jonathan David is not the Canadian Player of the Year for 2024?
Slam
Difficult
dunk.
to
I
make
think
the
so.
case for anyone else. It's pretty much a slam dunk. That's it. I just wonder who may be providing the service, whether Schaffelberg and Ahmed get the start. I'm looking forward to potentially seeing Tajon Buchanan back on the field. He's been on the bench for 4 games for Inter since returning from that broken tibia in the summer. It'd be great to see him back on the field because you start taking away and peeling back the layers a little bit. No Liam Miller out through injury. Davies is a clear and present threat coming, from wide areas. That is an area that I don't think that Canada is as strong on paper, but potentially in practice, because players like Schaffelberg and Ahmed have been that good. So we'll see if there's a qualitative advantage there or not.
All right, Jordan, in the past couple of days, you've talked a lot about who's going to play beside a certain Moise Bombito, Waterman, Kamal Miller. Obviously, Gareth and Ollie just went through a couple of big hitter names, but you want to spend a bit more time on Moise, who, if we were to give a player of the year for maybe the best story, he'd probably be a shoo-in in that category. But obviously, you rate the player and are enjoying the Bombito train as much as anyone.
Yeah, and I think we'll do our own little award, like most improved, right? Like you got to put it in context of how big of a role he's playing and how he wasn't even really mentioned a year and a half ago, right? You're looking at that. I think when you have a performance like that as a player, to that magnitude, where everyone's talking about you, even to the end where Alphonso Davies is giving him, making him beat the drum, and everyone was singing his praises. To go out and do that again in Suriname is going to be a task as well. No one can question the athleticism, the way that he reads the game, but it's just a consistency getting into that uniform, especially as a younger player. And I think also too, you develop chemistry with your center back partners. It's the same with like wingers and fullbacks in some respect, but it's even more so with center backs. It's like you have to almost read and anticipate what someone's going to do. Now that Cornelius is out and there might be a Waterman or there might be a Kamal Miller next to him, you can't take too long to get that chemistry right. He's going to be in a leadership role, if I must say so. And with a guy like Cornelius, who is a bit older than him, you have that chemistry. But now he's thrown into a different situation. I don't need him to be the man of the match. I just need him to be the general in the back, because I think with Canada and the way that they play in this system, those center backs are so vital into the success of this team. But he's going to be a player that everyone has their eyes on, but specifically me for sure.
Wheels, I know you want to talk about one last player before moving on.
Well, I just want to bring up the fact that Ismail Kone is back in the team. So is Alistair Johnston, who wasn't in the team. Alistair, I thought was really missed against Panama. Game where Canada were average, but bringing Kone back into this team, I just wonder where Marsh may see him best to play for this Canadian team. He's been playing in a much more advanced role at Marseille since returning from injury. Hasn't played 90 minutes of football, hasn't played an entire game yet. So he's been like a 60-minute player, a player that's been coming off the bench. But I think this is a good time just to remind the footballing world what he has in the locker. And the way that Chouanier played alongside Eustachio, I'd be tempted to kind of play him underneath, maybe change up the formation a little bit and just play to the strengths of Kone. I think that Canada misses at times, especially playing against some teams like this that might, sit back a little bit and are going to be second best against a team like Canada. Need a little bit of a different type of player that I think that they'd be missing. Perhaps that Kone is that player that can unlock a back line when it's playing in a very stubborn way.
All right, good. Let's go right back to you with this. And no one's looking past Paramaribo, and it's a good thing that Canada have gone south to Miami before making the trip down to South America for this match. And they need to win this tie before thinking about what's next. But you brought up the fact that this Nations League did not go very well for Canada. In fact, it was borderline heartbreaking or embarrassing even to not get out of the quarters last time around. You really find value in this CONCACAF Nations League format, Gareth, and maybe not just necessarily the tournament, but what it means when you don't go all the way.
Last year was a disaster when they lost to Jamaica, not just from a practical sense where they need to play some qualifying game against Trinidad and Tobago to then go on and qualify for Copa America, but the fact that you're not at the big dance with the big boys in this region. You want to test yourself once again in a competitive game, not a friendly, but a competitive game against a revamped United States side, the Mexican side that's under new leadership right now, the best of the best in this region the next window, instead of playing some de facto Gold Cup qualifier in the next window or worried about lining up other games. By advancing from this tie as well, you get receive automatic qualification into next summer's Gold Cup as well. So just make the path forward for this team much more clear by coming away with a result here. And I think it matters winning a trophy. It's been a long time since the year 2000, since they last won a trophy. I think that's the way that you set the tone heading into a World Cup, by winning either one of the competitions that will be played out in 2025.
Yeah, I'll just add to that quickly that while I'm not particularly concerned about Suriname as an opponent, I do think that this is a different type of challenge for Canada in terms of what Jesse Marsch has faced so far. And that Panama game in the last window was probably the first one Marsch has had where Canada has been clear favorites. And like Wills mentioned earlier, the performance was, just okay, right? And it's a different type of game, different dynamics. You can't necessarily play in transition and on the counter-attack as much, and there's going to be more of that here. The difference this time is that there's real stakes, real expectations of Canada going into this game, obviously needing to win this tie to make the Nations League final, plus a number of players who are absent, Davies, Cornelius, Liam Miller, and a couple like Ismail Kone and Tajon Buchanan coming off injuries. So, we'll see what their level of involvement is. So there are a few different complications and a few different challenges, I think, compared to what Jesse Marsch has faced so far.
All right, a reminder, tomorrow, full match day live coverage, Canada at Suriname. It is a 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 7:30 p.m. Atlantic Time. But join us a little bit earlier for the match day live presented by CIBC coverage. Return leg goes Tuesday in Toronto, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff. And we'll, of course, have a recap and look ahead to that match on next week's One Soccer Today. And now time for our TonyBet Top Picks. Presented by TonyBet, these are our top picks for today. Yesterday, we took half of the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinal matches. There was some resounding love for Canada over Suriname and for Steve McLaren and Jamaica to get off in that era on a high. And that leaves us with the other 4 quarterfinals with a reminder, these are 2-legged ties and an opportunity to directly qualify for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. Oliver Platts, welcome back. Coast plus 129, Panama on the road at plus 190.
Come on, Ali, give me some spice. Come on.
I like Panama. I think they're a good side. I'm always inclined to take a flyer on Panama. Give me a Panama at plus 190 as the underdog here.
Plus money there. Jordan Wilson?
Panama, great team. Wheels put me on them. And after I've done my research, I back Panama more often than not, unless you play Canada.
Gareth Wheeler.
I'll be a little bit careful here. Going to Costa Rica, it's very difficult. It's a difficult
Ollie
place
knows
to go.
that well.
I'll play him on a draw no bet. So if it ends in a draw, then you get your bet back at plus 102. Panama, that is. Panama plus 102 on the draw no bet.
Okay, Gareth, since you're already up there, your beautiful mug will stay there. Honduras plus 440, hosting El Tri at minus 189 away.
Who is the weakest side left standing? Is it Honduras or is it Suriname? There's a good question there. Yeah, Mexico going away from home right now. It's not a bet that I'm particularly excited to make. Give me under 2.25 at a plus number here. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Could be 1-0 Mexico. Wouldn't surprise me. I can't see Mexico losing, but can Honduras keep it close at home? A low scoring fixture. That's kind of the way that I see it playing out. So under is the best bet for me.
Jordan Wilson.
I can see Honduras. I could see Mexico losing. I could see that.
Could I sprinkle a toonie?
I could. Again, look, but it's hard to ask me because I'm here betting with no money. So of course I'm going to go and say that. But Honduras at home.
More fun to bet with real
draw
money.
Feels great to me though. The draw. That feels
Oliver Platt,
1-1.
15 seconds.
Screams under to me. Mexico, you deserve some credit. They've tightened it up defensively. I think they'll go and just try and get a safe result to bring back here.
All righty. We are excited for tomorrow's CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals. You can, of course, find it right here on One Soccer. Join us for our Matchday Live preview show.
Let's have you back,
that
Ali.
will begin at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. in the Pacific Time Zone. Gareth, Jordan, Ollie, we thank you. See you tomorrow.
How about mountains, Ali?